I hope you'll be able to attend some of the other ones we have. We have Tell Us What You Want, which is a sort of for people in the section. But our last session is going to be with Lynn Conway, who's the VP Research for OCLC. I'll tell more about it once this starts.
That'd be great, yeah. One Addison Bradshaw right now. So, well. It's 3 more minutes really to go, so we'll wait till people start coming in. Oh, hello. Hello, hi. We're just waiting to get started. We will get started in just a minute. Just giving a few more people time to sign in to the session. Oh yeah. Guess is everybody okay to wait 1 more minute, and we'll let. We know this session will be recorded, so I think some of the attendees or the people registered, we're hoping will probably be looking to get the recording. Okay. Well, Justine, do you want to we'll get started, and I'll add people as they come in.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to the session today. This is our third session in our Focus on Impact series that is being run by the Statistics and Evaluation section for IFLA. So as Christine just mentioned, we are recording all of these sessions. 2 of them are currently available on our website. And that was the first session, which was a panel presentation on how different libraries approach impact. The second session was an article discussion on data storytelling and how you can use it for impact. The third session, Christine is going to describe for you in a moment when she introduces the speakers. Our fourth session, which is running on July 3rd, is going to be on a chance for you all to tell us what you would like from this section, the Statistics and Evaluation section. And our closing speaker on July 10th is going to be Lynn Conaway. She is the Vice President Research for OCLC, and she, along with some of her colleagues, did a global survey on what libraries from all sectors see in the future. So what is the future of libraries? And in that survey, they interviewed and surveyed librarians from over 77 different countries. So that should be a very, very interesting presentation as well. But today's presentation will also be very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I am going to turn it over to my co-moderator, Christine Brown from the University of Alberta, to introduce the section.
Yes, thank you very much, Justine. I'd like to introduce you to this webinar where we hope you'll learn more about a community of practice on the value and impact in libraries that has been set up in Australia and New Zealand by our speakers. And I'll just read to you a little bit about them in just a moment. But Justine and I are coming from the province of Alberta in Canada, where at presentations like this, we do recognize the land in which we work and live. So at the University of Alberta, we acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. And the University of Calgary is located in the heart of Southern Alberta. And it both acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories and peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tutsineti First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Districts 5 and 6. Our speakers today are very familiar with this topic. Joanna Logan is Quality and Planning Manager from Queensland University of Technology. Joanna is the Quality Planning Manager for QUT Library in Brisbane, Australia. In this role, she leads the library's evaluation, reporting, and strategic planning, and collaborations for data-driven service and operational improvements, including enhancing the user experience across various platforms. She also manages the library's inquiry services. Joanna is a co-convener of the CAUL, Council on Australian University Libraries, Value and Impact Community of Practice, and is the current board member for the LibPMC International Conference on Libraries Performance Measurement. Simon Hard is Policy Planning and Evaluation Library at the University of Otago. Simon is also the Policy Planning and Evaluation Library at his university in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Do you want to give me that pronunciation, Simon?
Ōtepoti.
Ōtepoti, New Zealand. Yep. Thank you very much. He provides leadership for the library's quality advancement framework and fosters evidence-based decision-making and a culture of continuous improvement amongst library staff. His research focuses on improving the library capability and includes collaborations beyond the library to enhance scholarship. Simon is also the co-convener of the CAUL, Council of Australian university librarians value and impact community of practice, and is an advisory group member of the LibPMC International Conference on Libraries Performance Measurement. Thank you very much, and I will hand it over to our speakers, who hope this session will be a very interactive session, and do want you to speak up and ask questions as we go along.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Christine and Justine,
Thanks.
for inviting us, and we're very excited. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Okay, great. So I'll give an acknowledgement, and then I'll pass over to Simon as well. So I acknowledge the Turrbal and Yugara as the First Nations owners of the lands where I now stand. I pay my respect to the elders, lords, customs, and creation spirits. I recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning.
Kia ora, Joanna. I also want to pay acknowledgement to the tangata whenua from where I come from, the whenua, and pay my respect to the kaumātua and kuia of the Runanga. Kia ora. So today we're here to share with you our experience in as the guardians of a community of practice across Australia and New Zealand universities, and we fall under the structure of the Council of Australasian University Libraries. And we want to also welcome, I noticed in the participants, some of the members of our community of practice have come along to support us today. It's great that you're here, and we hope that you'll engage with the session today, because we really want it to be an interactive session, so the people that are here can hear about what we've done, but also think about how they might set up a community of practice in their own regions. So when we look at the first question, well, no, before we start looking at the questions, maybe Joanna and I will just have a discussion around the community of practice that we come from and how we operate.
Yeah, give a
Yeah.
little bit of a background and
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to start, Simon, because you're one of the
Sure.
original members of the community of practice? Because we're
Yeah,
both
well, so-
guardians. We call them
Yeah.
guardians of the community of practice.
And that does make reference to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And we thought it was quite a good term as opposed to co-conveners, because the community is very much about everybody else in the group, not just about the people that help facilitate it. So back in 2016, a group of library leaders in our region saw that there was a need for building capability in the area of value and impact, because they recognised that there was a whole lot of roles out there where people working in isolation that would really benefit from getting to know one another, getting to meet one another. They're all at a different part of their quality journey, if you like, and we're very much working sole charge in isolation. And there was no really kind of system of them sharing ideas or learning about best practice. So they set up a seminar series on a day that was held in Australia, and invited some international guests along to talk about what they were doing in the space, and to try and get people together to meet one another and get things happening. And after that, they found that there was a real need for people to get together, and they sent a survey around the attendees asking them if they'd like to join a community. And they drafted up terms of reference, and the first meeting was about the 26th of May 2017, where people had registered an interest, joined up on an online meeting, and went through the terms of reference and decided how they were going to operate. When did you join, Joanna?
Yeah, I think I joined a little bit later, I think. So we had originally 4 guardians, 2 from New Zealand and 2 from Australia, because it's an Australian-New Zealand community of practice. And I think it's really beneficial to have at least one person from each of those different regions, because it just brings a different, different awareness of what's going on in your own region. And I think, it makes sure that it's not particularly biased towards one region or another. And so I came on board maybe 2 or 3 years after, when one of the 4 guardians left the community of practice. And so it has evolved over time. So with the administration, so Simon and I, we keep in contact during, in between meetings as well. We help with membership requests. We help with encouraging, answering any questions from people who'd like to join, or also encouraging, giving some support to people who are going to be the chat monitor or the note taker or the chair for the next session, because we do alternate roles. And so I came on board and sort of like as a junior member of the Guardian, but now I'm up to like a fully fledged Guardian with Simon, and we could keep things running in the background. But it is very much a community of practice. It is for the members, by the members. So we wouldn't call it, as Simon said, I think Guardian is a nicer term than maybe co-convener. That's just something that we like.
Yeah.
So we don't lead the community of practice. I think it is a community-led group. And I think that's one of the benefits, the unique aspects of it.
Yeah. When we started off, we really benefited from having someone with some status in our community involved, someone who added some legitimacy to the group. So a couple of members of the Council of Australian University Librarians kind of management group were steering this, and having one member from New Zealand and one member from Australia in that role was really useful in terms of showing that, we kind of meant business, and that it gave confidence that we were going in some direction. And so did the terms of reference kind of set out how we were going to, what we were setting out to achieve. So that was really useful. But to give you some idea around how we function, we meet online every 6 weeks. And we use Zoom, and invitations are sent out to anyone who's interested in participating. We tend to have 1 or 2 colleagues from each institution, and we do require that they have a quality focus role in their job as well. And that could be anything from marketing or planning, or it could be that they're working in the collection space or user engagement. But yeah, just that they're there representing their institution, and they've got some skin in the game. And we do have a break over the Christmas New Year period, which is our summer period, where we tend to have a longer break. But we essentially hold about 8 meetings a year from February through to November, December.
Yeah, and Simon, how we schedule those meetings at the end of the year, usually about November, December, before people go on the Christmas break. Simon's usually the one that sends out a survey, and the survey has kind of like 2 aspects to it. One of them is it asks a series of questions to try and gauge the impact, or value and impact community practice. So we want to kind of gauge, the effectiveness and the potential impact that community has had for its members. And the survey also asks people what they might be interested in covering next year. What sort of themes, challenges, issues, things that they're working on, things that they would like to cover next year. So that helps us to try and prep or draft a schedule, at which we cover in the first meeting of the year, probably in about, I think, January, February. And we ask people in the community of practice, there's an expectation in the community of practice that they will put up their hand to be a chat, to be a chair or co-chair. We encourage people to co-chair if they'd like. Co-chair a meeting during the year, or be a chat monitor, or be a note taker, or do one or more of those roles during the year. So there is the expectation that people will put their hand up and will actually take on one of those roles in one of the meetings. So it's not just Simon and I. We're not the ones that run every meeting. Simon and I will probably do 1 meeting a year where we're a chair, but we do encourage and we do support members to take on those roles. Yeah.
So we always aim to bring in the as much expertise as we can. So not only is the program an opportunity for our colleagues to share what they're doing, perhaps they might rerun a conference presentation they've done that not all of us could get to, or they share a project that worked well or didn't work well, and share their learnings with us. But we also seek to draw on our contacts internationally and bring in international guests. And that really helps provide a different perspective. It's really good for benchmarking. And when we do those events, we try and invite other communities of practice within our network to come along and join us, so that we can share the benefit of those international speakers.
That's
more
been really
recently,
popular.
yeah. We had Dr. Star Hoffman from the University of Nevada come and talk to us last year around strategic planning, and that was really inspiring. We've also had Andy Priestner run a recorded session for us on the UX work and how libraries can benefit from building a UX culture within their community. And we draw also we've draw not only on the university infrastructure. We've had leaders from public libraries come and talk to us about the work that they're doing as well, so that we really broaden our scope, so that it's not just about university libraries. We can learn from a whole range of different perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's been really valuable, and it provides an opportunity for us. As Simon said, we're often in roles where there might be just one or sometimes two of us in a university library, and we can feel a bit isolated sometimes, particularly during COVID. I think during COVID, the community of practice, we had strong representation at the meetings, and I think that it was a safe place that we could share, some of the challenges that COVID presented for academic libraries in Australia and New Zealand. And so I think that the membership has continued to be strong for the community of practice. But I also want to say that I think that, because we're coming back to the question of what is a community of practice, is that, as Simon said, it brings together people, who are interested in, who've got to share a concern or a passion for something and they want to learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. So they're an informal self-organising group, in this case, but Simon and I help that along. But I think for me, one of the things that I find the benefit of is that it actually provides a level playing field as well. So, in Australia, and I'm sure overseas, we have some very small universities and we have some very large universities. We have some universities that might be struggling financially and some that are doing okay, some that have a lot of international students, some that have a lot of domestic, some with research focus, some with more teaching and learning. So I think what the community of practice does is that it doesn't matter what type of institution, how big your library is, how many staff you have, or whether you're an early career professional or whether you're somebody that's been around for much longer. You don't even have to have met the people in the community practice in person. We're so geographically dispersed. So I think it provides a level playing field where, regardless of your background, your expertise, the size of your institution, your voice is a valid voice, and you have as equal an opportunity to participate and to take on a role or to present, to share, your thoughts, to ask some questions. So I really like that about the community practice.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, we give as an opportunity for people to talk about what worked and what didn't work, because there's always lessons in the mistakes that we make, and being able to share those with people, we can all improve on what we do next time, and that's really, really useful. Through our meetings, we don't just have a specific topic that we focus on. We set some time aside at least twice a year to have a session which we call Round Robin. It enables each participant to go around and share what's happening. Now, people don't need to attend meetings. There's no compulsion to attend meetings. You come along if you've got the time and the space, as your calendar allows. And the same goes for sharing what you're doing. When people are ready to talk and share what they're doing, that's something that we celebrate. But if people aren't ready to discuss and don't have the confidence yet to share, that's okay as well. So those sessions are really useful. And as Joanna pointed out, during COVID, we scrapped our agenda and we just left space for people to talk and people to share what was going on, so that they could all learn from one another. as they often were reshaping services and had to continue to report the value and impact of those services. So we were there for one another through that time. And it's amazing what happens with the connections, because someone will say, oh, I've been working on this particular project, and does anyone else doing something in this area? And all of a sudden 5 people will put their hands up, and they're busy sending you the policies, the guidelines, the project documents, all that sort of thing that you can draw from. And one really good thing about that is sometimes people will connect offline as well. So they'll register that someone else is working in this space, and so they'll connect offline and have a chat and share resources and try and learn from what one another are doing. So we don't record all of our meetings, but we do keep regular minutes and agendas of our meetings so that people can go back to those and look over them. And we also post in an online Google site the resources that we share through the presentations as well, or if people want access to different documents. We have found a need that sometimes we need to tag those documents as either public or private, particularly if it's something that's in development or has some sensitivity about it. We just note that it's a private document and it's just to be shared within the community. But then most of the stuff is shared as public as well, which is really generous of our colleagues. And Joanne mentioned before the concept of the community of practice as being by community, for community, of community, and we can't stress that enough. You really need to talk to your members around what it is they need, and then let them drive the community and let them run it. And that, as Joanna pointed out, it's actually really empowering for the community to be able to do that. There's been times when we haven't had the same amount of energy that we have at the moment, and that's required a little bit of work from the Guardians to go out and just tap people on the shoulder and chat to them and encourage them.
We did a recruitment drive as well.
Yeah, we did a recruitment drive, yeah.
Which strategically we contacted, Simon and I divvied up the people that we looked at the universities in Australia and New Zealand that weren't covered. We divvied it up and we went out, we contacted the university librarians and asked if they'd like to nominate someone. Sorry, Simon.
No, that's fine. And we pointed out that their staff were missing out. They were the odd one out, and that was really useful for that. But the other thing that we found as we've evolved, it's really important for us to document our processes because Joanna and I won't necessarily be the guardians forever, and we need to be able to, in terms of sharing the workload, we've documented what's expected of people when they may chair a meeting and to give them some support. We've struggled a little bit with keeping up with the membership requests, and that's because the technology that we have been using was set up by someone else, and since they left the group, it's been hard for us to manage that. So that's something to really think about, is if you're going to look at using a particular platform to share, setting it up so that it's not dependent on one person as well. We certainly got some feedback from the incoming members that their experience of joining wasn't as clean as it could be. So Joanna and I stepped up our game, and again, we kind of wrote up some procedures and some documents that will support one another. And we're pretty good with the difference in time zones, we can respond to different things at different times.
Yeah, we also have called the Council of Australian University Librarians. So we're under their auspices. We don't actually, we do report once a year to the committee. We send a report, but we kind of run independently, but under their umbrella. So we have some support, but we have some support. The call officer, one of the call officers, sets up the meetings for us. We ask them to set it up at the beginning of the year, and they will also add new members to the email list. So Simon and I will email them and ask them to be added, but the remaining admin is done by Simon and I. So it's good to have some processes now that we've written up. So because as you know, Simon and I have got day jobs, as all of you would have. So we have improved our membership adding new members. We've streamlined that, but I can't stress enough like how helpful it has been to have some templates, like a template for an agenda template. We've worked out a template response for when somebody wants to become a new member. So we've documented all of that. In the past, it might have been in various people's emails, and if people leave the group or you're struggling to find something in your email, so actually having that information available and documented is really helpful.
Where next, Joanna?
Are we up to the best ways to establish facilitators for the COP,
Yes,
Simon?
we are. Thanks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
as I mentioned
you've
before,
talked about
yeah,
the
we
need for
shoulder
someone
tap
who's
some
got
people.
authority.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but they need to have someone who's got authority. That's right. And we've also, not only that, it's someone who we had 4 of us originally, and that was really helpful because it really helped with kicking it off the ground in terms of running the events, and someone who's familiar with the technology as well. And having, if you're chairing a meeting, having someone else there who can troubleshoot on the fly. So when Joanna mentioned earlier, when we run our meetings, we have a chair, and they're not necessarily the person who's talking, but they're there facilitating the meeting. We'll have a minute taker, and many of the minute takers will take the minutes live into the shared workspace, and people can go in and add links to those minutes as they go as well. So it can be a bit of a collective effort. But we also have a chat monitor there to monitor the chat and let us know what's coming up, or if anyone's have any technical difficulties joining, then the chat monitor often goes off and helps support those people to join as well. So it means that the meeting can continue without the chair or the facilitator having to step up. So yeah, it helps to have people in the group who can troubleshoot on the fly as well.
Oh, that's a great question, Justine. How many members are there currently? Simon?
53.
53.
53,
Wow.
yeah. So that membership drive was really useful for us, because really we want to get and we want to share the love. We want to get out into as many people as possible. And when we did have that recruitment drive about 18 months ago,
Yeah.
we realised that there was actually space for us to hold a orientation session for those new members.
Yeah.
Often when people join, they'll sort of learn as they go. But we thought it was really, since we had so many people joining, we thought it was a great opportunity to just spend an hour or half an hour answering people's questions and sharing them a bit about how the community of practice operates. And what was really exciting at that orientation session was at the end of it, quite a few of those new members signed up to take roles as minute taker or chat monitor. We weren't expecting them to necessarily run the meeting, but they stepped up and started engaging in running the meeting. So that was really cool. So we do have about 53 members, but we tend to get anywhere between 10 and 30 participants at any one session, and that's reasonably manageable as well. But yeah, as I said before, we allow people to come and go as they want, and the numbers that turn up is often an indication of the strength of the topic as well. Yeah, so it gives us an indication.
Oh, sorry, Simon.
No, go for it.
Often, at least for each meeting, often Simon and I are there as well, the 2 of us, but we generally try at least one of us to be there. We don't need to necessarily do anything in the meeting because we've got the chair and the note taker and the chat monitor, but we do try as guardians to attend as many meetings as we can. So Simon, there's the question that we had, which was about that we were going to cover, which is about what kinds of activities would a COP, a community practice, undertake?
Sure. So as we mentioned before, we ask our members what they want. We bring experts in to share their work, but we've learned that you actually need time for discussion. I would really recommend not giving your presenters 50 minutes to talk. It's probably really important to give them 20 minutes at most. Justine, you've got your hand raised. Is there something you'd like to ask?
Yes, I mean, once you're done talking about this, I was quite curious if you have 53 members, have you all considered doing a collaborative project together, like serving your members to find out what is the standard for assessment librarians or anything like that? And if anything like that is in the work or you plan to publish or something
Sure.
along those lines.
I can jump in,
Mhm.
and Joanna will help me with answering this. We haven't got a project across all the memberships. A lot of the collaborative activities are driven by the Council of Australian University Libraries' higher strategic agenda. But we have thought that it might be useful to hold a face-to-face meeting from time to time. And we have looked at the opportunity to tag on to other conferences. So we could have a session and a get-together there. We did do a piece of work early on where a set of standards came out from Australian University Libraries and research libraries, and we did work collectively on a project to build a capability framework around those standards as well, saying, you know, how might you go from being an ad hoc position to being a bit more managed and mature position across those standards. But to be honest, we've just, since the pandemic, we've all just been treading water. Many of our institutions have had to downsize, and we're still suffering with a lot of people off work and momentum with our projects. And we've also had a drop off in student numbers as well, because school leavers aren't, their options are more broader than they used to be. They can go straight into work. So we're not getting the number of students, so that's affecting us financially as well. So really, we're just starting to, you know, get back to what might be a new normal. But Joanna, do you have anything to add there about collaborative projects across the network?
No, I think it's a great question, and I think I think you're spot on in terms of Australian New Zealand sort of context. So, the Council of Australian University Librarians, they've come out in the last year or two with a new set of strategic priorities, and certainly in terms of where the resources will be focused, like for each of the university libraries, I imagine they're going to be focused on those strategic priorities. We've also got changes, I'm not sure about New Zealand, but in Australia, we've got Universities Accord, we've got new policy, new higher education policy the federal government is looking at. So there are big things that are happening, as well as the financial imperatives, and we've got lower international student numbers. So I think that collaboration is a great idea, but I think it might be driven by some other strategic priorities that sit slightly higher than the community of practice. But we certainly do encourage members, and I've done it myself, where if I've got a particular topic that I'm working on or something I want some feedback on, but it may not be something I want to present or ask, everyone in a meeting, I might just send an email out going, is someone doing something in this area? And if so, can we meet up with a small group? And I let everyone else know. So you might get 5 or 6 people from member institutions that might say, yeah, I'm interested in that topic. And we'll set up a meeting outside of our standard 8 meetings a year.
Cool. So thanks for that question. That was a good,
it's a great question.
Good segue. But I'll just go back to we were talking about what kind of activities were undertaken. A bit of it sort of recapping some of the discussion that we had earlier, and that was that, as I was saying before, we leave room for some open discussion to share what we're working on and any problems we may have. And as Joanna pointed out, we have sometimes meetings outside of that. But where I come from in Ōtepoti, Dunedin, which is in Te Waipunamu, which is the South Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand, our Indigenous culture is Māori culture, and they have this concept of manaakitanga, and it loosely translates around caring for one another. It's about raising and upholding each other, especially visitors. And so we try and engender that concept into everything that we do, into weaving in it what we do. And it goes back to that idea where Joanna said everyone is on a level playing field. It doesn't matter what position you come from within your organisation, where you are in your quality journey. We look after one another. We try to engender that concept through all of our meetings and everything that we do. But extending manaakitanga actually requires you to be respectful. It requires you to be humble, always be kind, and always be honest. So those are some of the values that we weave through the community of practice. But I'll let Joanna talk a little bit more about some of the other practical things that we do, that kind of activities we do in our community of practice.
Yeah, and I just saw that Michelle, who's from our community practice,
Oh, yeah.
posted in chat that is where the mailing list has been valuable for discovering common themes. Yeah, so we do encourage members to use the mailing list to reach out, outside of the meetings. And yeah, thanks, Michelle. I agree. I find that mailing list really useful as well too. Yep. And it also helps break down some of the barriers. Like I think, sometimes Australia and New Zealand, we're so far away from everywhere else. So I think it's really good to have that trans-Tasman sort of collaboration and communication. And I think, Simon and I, for example, I'm a current member of the LibPMC board. Simon is a past member, but also a friend of it. And so we have, and as Simon said, last year we invited I think it was last year or this year, we invited Dr. Star Hoffman to present, and we've had Bryony Ramsden from LibPMC also present. So we're also trying to bring in, speakers and ideas and themes from outside of the Australian-New Zealand region. So we'd be very keen for any of your members, if they want to reach out to us at any stage, we're very keen to see if we can have some communication and see if they would be interested in coming along to a meeting, or if presenting or recording or sharing some of the things that they're doing. Yeah. So sorry, Simon, I deviated. There was a question about sorry, I went off on a tangent. Some of the things that we do in the COP and how we run it. That was the question?
Yes, it was.
Some of the things. Yep.
So do you want to tell them about how we use the Padlet? And
so we have
the surveys.
Padlet. Yeah, so we have, how do we collect ideas about the themes that are going to be covered? So first of all, we have towards the end of each year, as I said earlier, we have a survey. So Simon sends out the survey and it asks members anonymously if they're particularly interested in anything for the coming year. And so Simon then prepares a report, and the report is sent to members of our community practice. You also prepare a report for CALL as well too, don't you? So the Council of Australian University Librarians. Yeah,
that's correct.
And we send it out after Simon's done the report. We send it out to our members, and then I think in the January or February, the first meeting of the next year, we ask members in that meeting. We do some brainstorming about themes that people are interested in. We have a spreadsheet that is open to all of our community of practice members and Google Docs, and anyone can add their name and themes to it. So Simon and I keep an eye on that, and before each meeting we make sure that there's at least someone who's going to be the chair and note taker and chat monitor for the next meeting. We send them an email before the meeting and just check in to see if they're comfortable with if the chair is comfortable creating the agenda, whether they need some help with it. So we send an email out to them and we reach out to them, and they're more than welcome to contact us if they have any questions. So we set this, there's a draft kind of a schedule that we have at the beginning of the year, and it depends on how interested people are, if they've got themes already thought of. We might have 2 or 3 kind of themes. They're welcome to present themselves. They're welcome to just chair. They're welcome to co-chair. They're welcome to, as Simon said, if they can think of people that they know. It doesn't have to be in academic libraries. We've had, someone from New Zealand Public Library. We've had Annie Priestner. We've had other people talk. So they can come up with an idea, or they can invite someone themselves. Yep. Yes. Simon?
Sorry to interrupt. I've got a list here of some of the kinds of topics that we've covered.
Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. Student surveys has been a big topic for everyone, because not everyone can afford the large survey tools that are available, like LibQual. And we've also had sessions on performance measurement, how we might go about establishing performance measurements. we've had quite a few sessions on dashboards and storytelling and other reporting solutions that people do. We've focused on service design, process mapping, and embedding a how you might embed a culture of continuous improvement as well.
Yeah, and Michelle's asked a great question. Have you ever struggled to find a topic or presenter? Yeah, we do have. We've had some blanks in the schedule.
Yeah.
We've always had something before a meeting, but a couple of times a year, as Simon has said, we do have a round robin, which is where you don't have to prepare anything in advance, in writing or anything, but whoever turns up on the day, we allow enough time for each person to say something. And I don't know that we have actually mentioned this earlier, but we have something that it's Simon, you call it Chatham House Rules, is that correct?
Oh yeah, that's right. Chatham House
Yeah.
Rules. Yeah.
So that is where we have an understanding that what's said in the community of practice can stay in the community of practice, in terms of it's a safe place for people to say, look, this is an issue at my institution, this is something that I'm grappling with, or these are some of the things that I tried and they didn't work really well, and this is the learnings that I had from them. So before we would, if you learn something from a community of practice meeting, we always encourage our members to check in with that person just to make sure that they're comfortable with you, talking about it in your own institution. And usually people are, but we want to keep it a safe space where people feel like they can share information and they don't have to, they don't have to worry that what they're saying may get back to somebody else. Yeah. So have we ever struggled to find a topic? We have a couple of round robins a year, so that kind of breaks it up a little bit. I think Simon and I can come up with a topic if we ever struggle, but we haven't really struggled, have we, in the last couple of years?
We've had to step down and not talk about the work that we're doing, and let other people talk. You may notice that Joanna and I can talk quite a bit about value and impact of libraries.
Maybe.
So we really need to leave space for other people. I mean, you can tell we're quite passionate about what we're doing because we're engaged on a international level. This is something that we really see as contributing to the kind of the social good. If all libraries can improve the value and impact of the work that they do, and we think it's critical for these kind of roles. So we're, as I said before, we're really into sharing the love and making sure everybody can learn as they go as well, and share what is kind of best practice. I've just got some quotes here from our members, where they told us what they value in the community of practice, which Joanna mentioned before, that we survey our members. So they say that they appreciate the willingness of many members to share their experiences and innovative developments, along with things that haven't worked. And that's really important to share those and be honest. People have appreciated the discussion of projects at other universities, and again, sharing the ideas, solutions. Nice feedback was we can all be at different stages with some things, but overall, we're still learning about value and impact, and there's so much to learn. And other people appreciate the positive collaboration and collegial cooperation among the participants, not only to present sessions, but to ask questions and share in solutions. So it's been really valuable for us in that. And I just want to talk a little bit about the performance measures that we set ourselves as a community of practice. So what we did is we looked to align our performance measures with our terms of reference, what it is we set out to do. And we looked across 3 core elements that in our performance measures, that is use, satisfaction, and impact. So in terms of use, we're really looking at how many times are we running sessions, how many people turn up, and where they're from. What impact do we have across the country? And as I mentioned before, I think we've got 53 members from about 59 university libraries. When it comes to satisfaction, we're looking at, are we meeting the needs of our community? Are we setting out what we said we'd set out to achieve? So we want to make sure our members' needs are being met, and we also are interested in whether the satisfaction levels are meeting particular standards. For example, we set out that originally we said we'd hold 5 meetings a year, but we're tending to hold around 8 meetings. And then when we look at impact, we have questions that are about the difference that we're making. And that often comes from the narrative or the stories and the free text comments. And we're really interested to hear around what people are able to achieve from being part of the community of practice, you know, what they're able to do and how much time they're able to save. So it's really around making sure we cover off the use, satisfaction and impact. And our report that goes to the call, we make sure we include that we're reporting on those performance measures, and we give them a bit of the story around, it's not just the data, it's really the story of the difference that it's making.
And I can post the, we've got a link to just a little bit of to the web page that's freely available. Oops. It has a terms of reference actually, because Simon mentioned terms of reference. Yeah, because I don't think the report is publicly available, is it? But the terms of reference are.
Yeah.
I was just thinking if there are any questions people have based on sort of the discussion you've had already, it would be really great to. People have been putting some in the chat, but if there's anyone that has a question they want to bring up and ask, this great time.
Something from Justine. It's following up on Michelle's question. Is there difficulty to balance the needs of people from big research libraries and smaller, more teaching focused libraries? I haven't encountered that, and I think sometimes the smaller libraries, because they are smaller and they've got less resources and less staffing, sometimes they're the ones that have the most innovative and interesting things to share in the community of practice.
Oh, I totally agree. I just wondered because sometimes maybe we don't do this at University of Calgary, but there's things like LibQual and other things that some libraries do and others don't. So I just wondered.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this term number 8 wire, which refers to the gauge of the fencing wire that's on farms. And in New Zealand, your number 8 wire can fix everything. And so part of the DIY attitude is we don't rely on the big corporate companies. We use number 8 wire. So we tend to run our student and staff surveys, drawing from some of the good questions that are out there, not relying on a corporate entity to run the survey or host the survey. And so, yeah, and I think the same is pretty much for a lot of Australasian libraries, is we apply a bit of number 8 wire and we run those surveys, and that's even some of the bigger ones as well. Sometimes they're required to, for their auditing purposes, run those, but the level of data that we get tends to be a lot richer if we run them ourselves and have control over the questions.
Yeah. Any other questions?
If there are any questions from people, I'd be curious about whether some of our, whether some of our international colleagues here have, whether they're a member of a community of practice or whether they've thought of starting one up, whether it's within their own institution, because I'm not sure about Simon, but we've got community practices at QUT libraries, smaller ones. So I'd be really interested to hear about what other people's experience is with a community practice or questions that they might have. Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much airtime, but just today something came across my email that there's a community of practice for assessment librarians starting via LinkedIn. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
We have some librarians in my university who are part of a community of practice for teaching with one of our Canadian library associations. so there, which hosts, it's called CAPAL, Canadian Professional Librarians Association. And so they host several different kinds of community practices, but they don't have an assessment one, which now it looks like maybe there's one at least. Is that international wise, or is it just Justine, the one that you're talking about?
I was just looking up the link. I will put it in the chat for anybody's who's interested.
Great.
I think it is international.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
All of America, all of the
Yeah.
United States of America, I think was the intention. But I've certainly posted that, reposted that notice
Yeah.
that came up today as widely as I can, so that everyone can engage in it. Those who are people are engaged in the LinkedIn social network platform.
I like the
Yeah,
idea of a local, of it being more local and part of like a country or part of a country, because that does, you have certain common understandings and certain common processes and regulations, rules and standards and things like that that make things a little easier to have these conversations about, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think
right.
I think Australia and New Zealand, because we're under the Council of Australasian University Librarians, I think there's already that. It gives us legitimacy and it gives us permission for our own institutions to spend time on it. So I think having that as the umbrella under the auspices means that it gives us a bit more kind of gravitas as well.
Yeah.
And and a shared set of like strategic interests, and so that works quite well.
Anybody here thinking about setting up a community practice or trying to find one in your area? Well, I hope people do take some time to think about some of the things that you've talked about today in your talk, and we still have a few more minutes for any last questions or comments.
for those who are interested in community
Yeah.
practice, when we do our session in 2 weeks on July 3rd for how we can serve you, maybe that's something that the statistics and evaluation group can start. It wouldn't be for a certain country, but it might be something useful.
So if anyone wants a bit of a how-to list on setting up a community of practice, later in the year, the work that we've been doing in our value and impact community of practice and the history of it will be written up in the Performance Measures and Metrics Journal.
Oh.
Yeah, and so that's currently in press. And so a bit more detail around what we did and what worked and didn't work will be detailed there. So if anyone needs to take check on anything, then there'll be information in that article. And that will be,
could you repeat the name of the journal? Performance
Measures and Metrics.
Ah, got it.
Yeah.
So we've had a preview of a bit of a preview of this.
Yeah, and it's an open.
Today.
The articles will be open access. Yeah.
I can't. Somebody said they can't hear Joanna. Oh. Hello? I can't hear people now.
I can hear you.
Oh.
I can hear you. I can hear everybody but Joanna.
Oh.
He has to put more coins in the meter.
Sometimes, Joanna, this might not be you, but I accidentally turned down the volume on my headphones by leaning in.
Oh.
Well, that might be a signal to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Christine, do you want to do
I
the
guess so.
honors?
Yeah, well, thank you. I just do want to thank everybody for coming, and certainly you know who our guests are, and of course this recording will be available. Everybody who registered for the session will get an email that the recording is available for them to listen to and get all this wonderful information that we've received today. And I do want to thank both Simon and Joanna for spending your time this hour with us and sharing your wisdom and experience, because we can all learn from that and take this to our own communities and try to replicate and maybe collaborate alongside each other in the future. So that would be a great other way to learn from each other.
Kia ora.
So,
Yeah,
mhm.
and I'd just take the opportunity on behalf of Joanna and I to thank you for the invitation to share what we've been doing, and also particularly to the people who've come along and generously given
Yeah,
up their time to be part of a presentation. So, ka kite.
yeah. Thanks everybody for being here today. So we'll, oh, thank you, Arlene. Okay. I'm going to head into the back.
All right, I guess why don't we head to the backstage? Thank you to those last couple of people in the session. It was, oh, there we go, one left.